Motorizing the LEGO Orient Express has a reputation for being notoriously tricky, and getting it to run smoothly can be a massive headache. Today I'm breaking down the 5 main issues that I personally encountered and exactly how I solved them so that you can skip the troubleshooting and just get your train rolling. So the first and most troublesome issue for me was derailing. If you're not familiar with what derailing means, it's essentially when one of the wheels goes off the rails, causing the whole train to come to a grinding halt. Firstly, if it's the locomotive that you've motorized, and especially if it's the locomotive or the carriages that's going off, then most likely the problem is with your track layout. Let me explain. I observed that derailments most commonly occurred when passing over this Lego piece. If we look at it in action, we see that the wheel tends to clip on one of these bumps, and if the train has enough momentum, the wheel might be launched upwards and outwards, causing it to derail. So the solution is simply to try to avoid using these elements in your layouts with Orient Express and instead use regular curved tracks that have smooth and continuous rails. Narrow curves and wavy sections are also problematic for this train because of the scale of its carriages. The carriages are much longer and heavier than on a typical motorized train set, so they carry a lot more inertia through these uneven sections of the train track, which makes it a lot easier for the wheel to be forced out of the rail. If you want to run this train at highest possible speeds, you should consider eliminating wavy sections and narrow radii corners altogether, and make your layout as streamlined as possible. Another problem that I've encountered is not having enough traction. The locomotive can move fine on its own or with the tender attached, but as soon as you try to pull the heavy carriage, the wheels of the locomotive are slipping and spinning in place. This is caused by low friction between the powered wheels and the track. It is a well-known issue in the LEGO community, and some fans have suggested adding these LEGO-branded rubber bands to the powered wheels. However, this is essentially just an O-ring or a seal, which you can get much cheaper and in a black color by simply Google searching O-rings in these specific dimensions and going with a local mechanical hardware supplier. Once you put the O-rings on the 4 powered wheels, you should have enough traction to move forward even with both carriages attached. In this demo, I'm using just one carriage because my table is too small for a full-length train. Another issue you'll notice when you try to run this train for the first time is clashing between the different train sections when passing through a curve. This is causing the train to be pushed and rolled out of the track. The simplest solution is actually to slightly modify the locomotive facing connection. First of all, we need to get rid of all of these pieces and simplify the connection like it is elsewhere. Number 2, we just need to slightly extend this front piece. So by one stud we move it forward, and that's it. This should be enough to solve the problem. And reconnect everything back together. If you already have train tracks laid through your LEGO city and think that you'll just plump the Orient Express onto an existing layout that worked for other trains, you might be disappointed. You see, this train is much bigger than a typical LEGO city train. It has longer carriages that need lots of clearance around them, especially on a curved section. The same goes to if you want to run this train through a tunnel. If your tunnel entrance sits on a curved section of the tracks, most likely the carriage will clip the wall and you'll find yourself having to redesign your track layout. In my case, if you saw my previous update, you'll notice that I completely modified my track layout because the original layout was not suitable for this train. I had to increase the gap between the track and the wall and leave more clearance around all curves. I also had to bury the idea of running both carriages of this train, at least not until I expand my city both lengthwise and widthwise, even though the train now has enough traction to pull both carriages. The layout is too small. The fifth and final issue with making this train run is not technical, but rather related with the overall cost. So let's dive into a full cost breakdown for this project. The main costs that you will have to budget for is the train, the battery box, and the motor. They are already much higher than just getting a powered up LEGO City train, with which you would also be getting a physical controller and a bunch of train tracks. In addition to these costs, you might also need to get the O-rings. Worse even, if you don't have enough train track pieces in your inventory, or if you're building your first layout, you will have to spend on the tracks themselves, because they aren't included with this set. Even if you have a layout, you might need to streamline it due to the reasons I previously discussed. For example, you might need to replace these pieces with smooth curves. All of this means that you're likely to spend some amount on train tracks. And this budget is not considering extra pieces that you will need for the motorization of the locomotive. There are of course ways that you could try saving on this project. For example, you could try sourcing the battery box and the motor from AliExpress. But then you have to ensure that they are compatible with one another and that the battery box provides enough power, that is, supports a 9-volt setup. If you end up getting an underpowered or an incompatible setup, then you won't be saving anything. So that is it. We've covered all 5 main issues with getting the Orient Express running. Here is a summary of what we've covered in this video. Feel free to pause and make a screenshot. If you found this video useful, I would like to ask you to leave a like and subscribe to my channel, because here I'm building a LEGO city from scratch and sharing all that I learn along the way. So thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.